Awesome. So good evening, everybody. It's really great to be here. So as Deborah said, I am the founder of Partners for Ethical Care. I'm also the founder of the Gender Mapping Project. And my mission really is to raise awareness about child safeguarding, pornography, prostitution, surrogacy, and transgenderism. So to tell you the truth, like a decade ago, I wouldn't have said that I would be doing this. I would have thought that I would be spreading the mission about, raising awareness about domestic violence, or perhaps working against the sex industry. I never could have imagined that I would be calling up gender clinics all around the world to ask them if they provide hormones and surgeries to children. So the Gender Mapping Project, it consists of a lot of volunteers, and what they do is they call all of the, because we want to map the whole idea and tell everybody how many gender clinics there are for children, because these statistics really matter. It's very important if we're talking about there's 200 gender clinics, and when I say a gender clinic, I mean a clinic that will provide hormones or surgeries to minors to so-called change their sex, which we all know is impossible. Humans just really, we can't change sex, we can just have body modification. And I came to many conclusions, really, and throughout this kind of journey, one of the conclusions that I came to really is the connection with pornography. And I think everybody probably realizes that pornography affects like every facet of our life, right? Media, social media, pop culture, it's really saturated with a lot of images of pornography. And what pornography really does is, I feel it really makes everybody feel pretty dissociated. So I want you to imagine a 12-year-old girl curious about the world with a smartphone, right? She might put porn into Google, right? To see what it is, because people are curious about stuff. And what does she think she's gonna see? Maybe intercourse, maybe breasts. But the first thing that she's gonna see is she's going to be delved into a world of sexual violence, gore, degradation. A lot of people don't really see the women on the screen as human. They kind of, they don't see them as women. They see these and they say that they're actresses, they're performers, right? This is all kind of a show and it's not really happening, okay? But what you see on Pornhub are violent scenes of anal rape, sex with multiple partners, gagging with objects we're talking about here until the woman chokes. There's actually one website that I cover where women are forced to eat out of dog bowls, right? So I want you to imagine a 12-year-old girl and what that's going to do to her psyche, right? To see, she's expecting to see something and she's seeing something else. And it makes her feel shocked. Same with a boy. Makes them feel shocked, makes them feel shamed, I think. And it makes them feel dirty because they've seen this, right? And it's not their fault. It's not their fault. So a lot of the time when I speak to people about pornography, like I speak to people from my parents' generation, and what they sort of say is, what's the big deal? It's just a pair of breasts, it's just a couple of nudie pictures, right? That's what kind of people are kind of inclined to say. But this is the pornography from 25 years ago is a far cry from what we're seeing today, okay? People often over the age of 35 don't understand the world of porn. They just don't get it, right? Because they haven't been raised in the internet age. And I think that being raised on porn, it damages everybody, right? Even if a young girl at the age of 16 doesn't see porn, maybe she might have a boyfriend or a partner who's seen porn, who's going to expect her to want to do the stuff that he's seen, right? So, it affects you, it affects your behavior. And Gail Dines is actually a pornography researcher that I take a lot of inspiration from. And she poses a very good kind of social question, right? what kind of men is this whole culture going to produce? These men that have been raised on pornography, violent pornography from the age of 12, what kind of fathers are they going to be? What kind of policemen are they going to be? What kind of teachers are they going to be, right? These are massive cultural questions that we have to really answer, okay? I think it's very, very important. So kind of through my investigation into pornography and gender, I realized that the two things are absolutely inextricably linked. Many of the girls, and I've spoken to many girls at this point who have had physical so-called sex changes, right? They've taken hormones and they've had surgeries, often removed their breasts, and they regret it. And a lot of them tell me about the influence of pornography and the influence that porn actually had on them. So I think that it's no wonder that we have this massive a tsunami of pornography, and we also have this massive tsunami of young girls who are presenting at gender clinics. We have a 4,000%, I think the latest statistic is 4,000% increase at young girls presenting at gender clinics. Girls at the ages of between 12 and 18 is the key demographic here. So, I often pose this question, why do young girls have such a problem about their breasts that they want to remove them? There's an inordinate amount of TikTok videos and Instagram posts glamorizing removing your breast, glamorizing it with big scars. Even recently, I think it was, what's her name? Miley Cyrus. She promoted, Miley Cyrus, but she's a massive cultural figure, really, she is. She has a big influence on young girls who've been raised on Hannah Montana. They trust Miley Cyrus, right? Miley Cyrus is not going to lead them wrong, right? That's what they think. And Miley Cyrus has I think it was I can't remember what it was, but it was some kind of a media thing with a girl with a double mastectomy, a so-called, transgender man. So, why does free porn exist? People don't really get this, right? And it all sort of comes down to one company based in Canada called MindGeek, who own all of the free porn sites, right? Now, they're not providing free porn out of the goodness of their hearts. They're a very large data harvesting operation, just like Twitter and just like Instagram. So
where are they based?
They're based out of Montreal.
Oh, they're in Canada.
Oh, they're in Canada. Yeah, they're in Canada. And they're what they've done is they've bought YouPorn and Pornhub, and the idea is to create a YouTube for pornography, right?
Right.
So a massive website that's designed to promote things to you, right? So they make money from their paid advertisement, right? So the paid sites. And the whole idea behind MindGeek is that you get a 12-year-old boy interested in pornography, right? And then when he turns 18 and he gets a credit card, he becomes a paid user of the site and a paid user for life. That's their business model, right? They are not providing this free pornography out of the goodness of their hearts. They want to get the young boys addicted. That's why they have no verification for underage people. You can sign up underage. You can watch the content right now on your smartphones, right? There's no age verification, right? You don't need to prove who you are. And I think that
in Canada or in the U.S. In the U.S., the law demands, I believe.
It's okay.
Just so everyone, we'll have Q&A. Plenty of time after the talk.
Plenty of time. I say, to everybody, like, our boys and girls, they deserve better. They really do. They deserve better than this. A lot of people say that people like me and other women who are talking about the sex industry and the porn industry, they say that we're anti-intimacy, right? That we're not interested in that. We think it's think but actually no, they're the ones that are anti-intimacy because porn ruins intimacy. We have a statistic that 30% of men between 18 and 30 are not engaging in sex on a regular basis with anybody, a wife, a partner, anybody, right? So we have a big problem here that there's a very large portion of people who are addicted to pornography and not going out into the world and having a partner, a meaningful relationship with someone of the opposite sex. So I also kind of want to mention this, just sort of is something that I feel quite passionate about, and that's the whole subject of OnlyFans, right? So most people in this room over the age of 35 have not heard of what OnlyFans is. You know, they don't exactly know what it is. So OnlyFans is a website where you can sell peer-to-peer pornography, okay? And it's almost like an LinkedIn for the sex industry. And what they have is, they have a platform that fuses social media and pornography into a single kind of user interface. And it was born off of the back of people having an interest in seeing, you know, celebrity nude photos. So this is a very important website for people to kind of understand. And so before the COVID-19 pandemic, there was 20,000 users. When I say users, I mean women who are creating pornography and selling it to people, okay? So imagine, does everybody know what Patreon is, perhaps? Patreon, right?
Yes.
You heard of Patreon. So it's a kind of like a Patreon where people sign up and join, but it's for exchanging pornographic images of oneself, okay? So at the beginning of the pandemic, there was 20,000 users. Now there are 1 million women on OnlyFans. 1 million, right? So I know people from my high school that are on OnlyFans, right? I'm sure a lot of the younger people in here, you know, have had that experience as well. Some of their friends are on this website exchanging nude pictures with people. And they kind of just want to, OnlyFans want to present themselves as providing a service for like content creators. You know, so kind of providing lewd photos. But what happens is they have a DM picture, a DM feature, which means that you can actually connect with the person who is creating the pornography. So there have been numerous women now who have been murdered from OnlyFans by their so-called fans and also been exploited on the site. And what OnlyFans wants to do is they simply want to wash their hands of the entire issue, right? There's many cases on this website of child content, which is, you know, completely illegal. And it's my opinion that they facilitate the exchange of exploitative and illegal content, right? That's my personal opinion. And I really feel that this website is operating as kind of like a pseudo-pimping service, an electronic pimp, so to speak, right? Because they're taking 20% of all of the revenue that is generated from these nude photos, right? Or nude, sometimes very, very graphic sexual things that are being exchanged. And no. And there's also many women who regret, you know, obviously joining this website and exchanging these photos. You know, think about yourself at the age of 18. You weren't making the best decisions. I wasn't making the best decisions, right? Think about that. You know, and thankfully we didn't grow up having, you know, this website that you could potentially have joined and exchanged images which you can never take back. Right? These images are out there forever. The internet is written in ink. It really, really is. So kind of, I want to kind of just go on to speaking a little bit now about the gender industry. Okay, so the kind of the intersection between pornography and transgenderism is very, very clear. The number 3 search term on Pornhub is a transgender. Right? So there is an inordinate amount of this content that is being consumed. Okay, so transgender pornography that men are getting addicted to, boys are getting addicted to, children are getting addicted to, and it really changes their perspective on life. I mean, some videos which I've seen, they stay with me for days. I can't get them out of my mind. You know, I see things, and I'm a 35-year-old woman, and I think I can digest content, and I cannot get these images kind of burned out of my head. So I think that, you know, we're told today that in order to be, you know, progressive, we have to be pro-transgender and pro so-called sex work, right? So sex industry, the sex industry. That is what the progressive people tell us nowadays, that's what we have to be. You know, they release these kind of mantras, you know, trans women are women, sex work is work, right? I'm sure everybody's heard these mantras being repeated. If you're young, you've heard them. You've heard them many, many, many times. And I think that it's extremely important to understand exactly why I started the project to document the gender clinics, right? So I thought, really, when I started this project, that I was going to encounter maybe 60 gender clinics, right? Maybe 60 throughout the United States and throughout, Canada and throughout Europe. I didn't think it was going to be quite so prolific. But after we picked up the phone and called all of these child gender clinics, we now have over 400 internationally. Okay, 400 of these gender clinics internationally. We have these gender clinics in places that you would simply never think of. Iran is the #1 place in the world for sex changes, which people would have never actually assumed, right? Because it's why is Iran #1? Because there is a very conservative society, and if people are, if a man is a little bit feminine, it's not particularly accepted there. So they tell them that there's a lot of social pressure into actually so-called transitioning to be more like normal, basically. And for when kind of getting involved with Partners for Ethical Care, or founding it with the rest of the founders who are mothers who have kids that are caught up in this transgender mania, we decided that we were going to operate a 24/7 chat service to speak to parents that are going through this. And through that, I've spoken to so many parents. I mean, some of them are even here tonight. So just so many parents, and they're all experiencing, the same things, basically. That their young, vulnerable daughters, mainly, between the ages of 12 and 30 sometimes, are wanting to change sex, right? They're wanting to take hormones and go on so-called puberty blockers, which sterilize them. They're wanting to do this. So I've spoken to so many parents, and the stories really are very, very, very similar. A lot of people ask me, like, what can we do? Like, what can we do to make this situation better? How can I protect my kids, right? I truly believe that we have to be proactive, right? We have to speak to teens and children about the internet. I personally don't think, so the average age of a young boy to see pornography is 8. 8 years old is the average age. And like I told you, this stuff is very, very violent, extremely degrading. Okay? I mean, we think about the kind of content that we were exposed to as teenagers, right? It was sexist and horrible, but it was tolerable in a certain way. It
R-rated movies.
Didn't frighten you, right? Didn't frighten you. It didn't make you feel shameful and dirty and horrible inside, okay? But that is what this content is doing to 8-year-olds, 9-year-olds, 10-year-olds, 12-year-olds. So I really think it's important to speak to your kids about pornography, and probably don't give them a smartphone, or at least a smartphone that's incredibly, incredibly restricted. And for parents that are caught up in this kind of transgender mania, I always say keep contact with your kids. Keep speaking to them. Don't let them kind of go. Let them know that you're basically still there for them. And I also I really want to touch on the subject of YouTube for just a second here. So a lot of children are watching extremely dangerous content basically on YouTube. So I always take the kind of the example of the Logan Paul and his brother. I don't know if anybody they know who they are. These are very, very popular YouTubers who are creating kind of child game content for the ages of like 18 to 16. So 5 years ago, they were creating kind of harmless content for 8-year-olds, 9-year-olds that was silly and stupid, whatever. But in 2020, actually at the start of the pandemic, these brothers started to host podcasts and vlogs with porn stars. Okay, so think about that. You have trusted this content creator on YouTube, right? You've seen it. You've seen your child watching it 5 years ago, right? Your 8-year-old watching it. And now they're talking about pornography and they're talking about porn stars. And I want to kind of explain to everybody the insidious nature of this industry, right? The insidious, it's not by chance that the most popular child's content creators are talking to porn stars, right? This is targeted, right? Because what happens after that? The child says, "Oh, I'm going to Google this porn star. You know, why not? I've just seen her on this podcast." And like I say, so I always give the example of Logan Paul. So he kind of hosts a variety of porn stars in his podcast, and has heavily featured a young woman by the name of Lana Rhoades, who I really, really like. Who was the #1 and still is the #1 porn star on Pornhub, who has left the industry, and she has gone on to say that she feels that she was groomed into pornography and she was forced to do more and more extreme acts like drinking urine from a dog bowl. So, that's the kind of stuff that I'm trying to sort of explain here. Just think about that you have child content creators on YouTube who are creating adult content for kids. Think about that. They're creating pornography for kids. That's kind of what I'm trying to get at. So it's my opinion that gender identity ideology, right, and pornography, specifically things like hentai pornography, which is cartoon pornography, FTM pornography, and she-male pornography, which is men who are presenting as women. I think they're inextricably interlinked. Very recently I was given a drawing by a 14-year-old boy who thinks he's a girl, and it was lifted directly out of kind of the visions of pornography. And it's kind of, the reason that there is so much cartoon pornography is because this is obviously targeted towards children. You have adult content basically for kids. It's my opinion that no one under the age of 18 should be able to access this type of content, and we have to understand really that the children are extremely susceptible to the influences from the wider culture. A lot of the young people that have regretted their so-called sex changes tell me the influence of social media, how dangerous it was for them, how much it led them to feel like they wanted to go down this path even more. And by the way, a so-called sex change is a decision from which there is no going back. Really, there is absolutely no going back. Once you start on this medicalized path, there's no going back. And I think that something very important that I also want to say to everybody is, like, you can get involved, right? There is so many ways to get involved with this subject. There are organizations like Partners for Ethical Care. We're doing a lot of actual protests against this phenomenon, right? And if your kid is caught up in this, I would say, hang on, like really hang on, and start to get involved with some of the organizations and start to tell the world basically your story so that other parents don't feel alone, right? Because there's a recent statistic, I think, is that 1 in 5 children in the US identify as transgender, right? So that's the kind of recent statistic. So there's a lot of the parents that speak to me as well feel like they're the only ones. Like they feel like this is the only ones that this is happening to, and actually there's absolutely thousands, and there's a lot of groups out there to help everybody. So I'd love it if everyone was to ask questions. I'd love to have even a long Q&A. That would be really wonderful.
Great.
Thank you.
Well, and just make sure, thank you very much, Alix. And we'll do like one question at a time, like maybe with a follow-up, but then you have to give everybody else a turn, so because we know that everyone's going to have questions. So we'll start, and then just make sure that everyone gets a turn.
Absolutely, yeah. Thank you.
I think I was reading somewhere that when those young girls see the degradation of women, they decide, I don't want to be a woman.
Absolutely, yeah. It's a huge part of it. It's when young girls see this very extreme violent content, I even don't even have to say the extreme violent content. We can take something like the, I think it was Nicki Minaj. She's a very, very popular, pop star. She created a video called WAP, W-A-P, which was directly lifted out of pornography. I mean, there is no way that the person who created this video, very explicit, that's on MTV, right? It's not, you don't need to be an adult to watch it. There's no way that person that created it, that had the vision, was not influenced by pornography. It's all over it, right? It's because it's so insidious. And then the girls see the degradation. I also think from the wider culture, not just pornography, so also from like media, as well as an incredibly powerful force. Because it is scary. Think about that. If you're a 14-year-old girl and you're growing up, you're thinking, is this what I'm going to have to do? Is this what I'm going to have to do when I get older? That I'm going to have to engage in this? That I'm going to have to be, slapped and choked and all of this? I think it scares them and it traumatizes them. And a lot of them also don't feel that they can talk about it because they're so ashamed, because they think that it's their fault because they put the word porn into Google, right? It's not their fault. Kids are curious, and that's what happens. And then they feel that they don't have the ability to go and say, "Hi, Mom, I saw something on the internet that's really traumatized me, and I want to talk about it." Right? Instead, they just internalize it. And then, what does the wider culture say to them in the sex education classes? The pornography is good. The pornography is great for you. It's healthy. It's healthy to engage with pornography. It's normal, right? So yeah, I totally agree with you. That's exactly what the wider culture says. Hi, thank you.
Hi. How do you respond to like modern feminists who say that like pornography is empowering, and like people will say, well, I've made it and it empowered me.
Yeah.
That kind of argument.
Okay, so I totally I think that it's okay. So we take the example of, let's say, I always say to them, listen, let's look at the top 5 stars on Pornhub. The top 5 stars, current top 5 stars right now on Pornhub. Lana Rhoades, Riley Reid, Mia Khalifa, they regret it, right? They're already saying, I regret doing this stuff, and they are already saying, I was pushed into it. So it's most of the kind of modern feminists who are saying that have absolutely no clue about the sex industry, right? And I think that you have to say to people like that, let's look at the actual facts here, and let's look at the people who create pornography. These are predators, basically. And if you're an 18-year-old girl and you arrive in Los Angeles, which is where a lot of the pornography is filmed, a lot of the time I give the example of the #1 porn star, that she said, I did not compute in my head that when I arrived in Los Angeles, I was going to have sex with people, because it had been glamorized through the girls of Playboy, and it had been glamorized through the wider culture. So they had bought into the lie that creating pornography was empowering, and then they actually went and did it, and they said, this is actually awful, this is terrible what's happened to me. And a lot of the time, these girls, especially the ones I'm mentioning, Lana Rhoades and Mia Khalifa, who created an inordinate amount of content, with this, they say that they were groomed, basically. And a lot of these girls have extremely troubled pasts, extremely troubled. And when somebody who's been in the sex industry, comes to me and speaks to me, no one ever says that they wish they could stay in the industry longer. No one ever says that. And the other interesting thing that they also say to me is that when they were in the sex industry, they told everybody how much they loved it. Because they had to buy into the lie. How else are you going to go out there every day and have, sex with people for money on camera? If you don't buy into the lie, you have to kind of lie to yourself a little bit. It's a little bit like smokers. You speak to a smoker and you say, you're just going to get lung cancer from this, and they see that they're in denial. Like it's not going to happen to me. I think that's also. A lot of the kind of people who are perpetuating that myth would never in a million years create pornography. Never in a billion years they would do it. And I also wonder if they watch pornography, because sometimes I speak to people who are kind of saying what you just said, that creating pornography is empowering, and then I show them a clip of something, and then they completely change their mind. Because once you see the content, it's very, very difficult to actually justify it. You know, you could say to them, hey, hang on, let's watch something together, and then we can talk about empowerment. Like, we can go on, there's a site called Latina Abuse, which is extremely, extremely popular, where women are eating out of dog bowls and being shouted racist abuse. So you could let's talk about that website. Is this website empowering for those women? You know, because the answer is obviously no. Nobody can justify that website, right? And very few people that are not involved in the kind of wider pornography culture even know it like exists. Yeah, go ahead.
I had a follow-up. This
Please.
is my last. Because
Ask 100 questions.
I find this topic so interesting. So I was reading, it was a while ago, it was a Lutheran female priest from a very progressive church.
Okay, yeah.
I was reading this article. Yeah, so it's interesting. She was trying to make the argument that like pornography is okay if it's like locally sourced and like not one of those sites, but like I guess I don't know how to.
I know exactly what you're talking about.
Yeah.
So there's this kind of it's really it's kind of based on Marxism. Those kind of idea that if you're controlling the means of production, it's absolutely fine, right?
Yeah.
Just a waffle, you know, real gobbledygook garbage. You can use the example of OnlyFans, right? You can use the example of OnlyFans as a really great example of people who are controlling the means of production, right? You can mention, on my website, I mention how many examples of child pornography are on that website. I mention stories of girls who say that they joined it and they deeply regret it and they can't get those pictures back and they're feeling suicidal. And by the way, let me tell you something as well that I didn't mention in my talk. The average amount of money that a young girl makes on OnlyFans is $176 a month, right? So yeah, so these are the facts. So, you can totally slam that kind of argument down with pure facts, because it's such a ludicrous suggestion, if I'm being beaten but I'm recording it, if I'm being beaten and choked and raped but I'm recording it, it's okay. It's bloody ridiculous. It makes absolutely no sense, and people have to justify it because it's so violent, because it's so horrible. You have to tell yourself lies. That's why the culture also has told us trans women are women, is because it's a big lie, and we can't. It's a way to kind of shut you down. Yeah. Don't think about this issue too much. Just today, I'm not sure if everybody saw Project Veritas, which I really love them. They released a video of somebody talking about how many women are being imprisoned in New Jersey with rapists, male rapists who identify as women, right? It's a big, big problem, that dogma, real dogma which is based on rubbish, dogma which is based on intersectionality and kind of Marxist feminist thought. You have to talk about it with logic, really, to people.
I have a question.
Please.
All right, let's go back to the early 19th century, and let's go back in particular to the UK. We have Jane Austen.
Right.
And she's the daughter of a vicar. All right, comes from a very solid family, and she chose not to marry a man. That guy Patrick, who was from Ireland, because he was trouble. Deceived her. Let's look at the Brontes. The mother Maria passed away, and the father Patrick, the vicar in Yorkshire, Emily, Charlotte,
the Bronte sisters.
And Bramwell, who was the problem child. All right, and but what they did to publish their great contribution, and I would not call them feminists. I would call them women who were searching for equal stature in the public eye, in the world at large, as created by God, Jane Eyre is a very spiritual book.
Yeah.
Especially towards the end, that vicar is pressuring her to marry him, St. John. Right, so, and she hears, and I believe it's through the Holy Spirit, Edward Rochester, and she goes back to him, he's blinded, trying to save his mad wife. That is very different. Do you not agree from what's going on now, this nonsense that you described? To me, that I see that as an awakening of how male and female are created equal in God's image, as we read about it in Genesis.
Okay, well, it's male and female. He created them, right? You know, is from Genesis. Yeah. So we were created male and female, but I don't particularly think God ever says anything about inferiority of women. I think that this whole idea that women are inferior has been really perpetuated in the last kind of like 30, 40 years. You know, because it's not the kind of things I talk about. It's not men that are creating pornography.
It's from the Industrial Revolution.
It's from the Industrial Revolution, exactly. From the Industrial Revolution, yeah. That's a really great point, yeah. So and if you, I do go into kind of a lot more philosophical kind of opinions. If you want to watch my interviews with a known heretic, Amy Sousa, on YouTube, we have very, very long, sometimes 2 hours discussions about stuff kind of just like what you're saying. Yeah. So thanks very much for your question. Yes, please.
Yeah, ask you about OnlyFans.
Please.
I actually
I'm an expert in that.
Yeah, when you mentioned OnlyFans, I've heard of it. I haven't gone onto it, and I know that people sell it. But I actually thought it's opened my eyes to what you say. I only believed it was a site where people, it's saucy content, like but it's actually worse than that.
No,
it's actually
so that's a
sexy pictures. It's
that's an incredibly important point.
Yeah,
here.
because that's what I thought it was.
No,
it's not.
Absolutely not. So what? Okay, so the most deceptive lie about OnlyFans is that they've successfully pushed young girls into believing that when they join will be independent small business owners, right? Which kind of the thing that you're mentioning here, from selling saucy pictures, and that they'll be able to purchase houses and supercars with their OnlyFans income, right? This could not be further from the truth. And this is from OnlyFans' PR machine, is that they really sanitized. It's incredibly interesting that OnlyFans has a female CEO. That's not by chance. They have picked a female CEO to sanitize what they are doing. Same with Pornhub. Pornhub creates, videos where women are eating out of dog bowls. Come on, and their CEO is a woman. Why? To sanitize what they're doing, right? Because a woman comes out and she says, "What's the big deal? These women are having a great time." So with OnlyFans, they have no control over the content that's being sold, right? So let's imagine I join OnlyFans today, right? And I actually have, I go onto OnlyFans a lot to see the content there. So imagine I create an OnlyFans account today, right? And I say, Alix Aharon, come and join, right, for $20.
Yeah.
So you join, you start to see my content, right? OnlyFans has no clue, right, what kind of content I'm sharing. But more than that, you can start to talk directly to me. Think about how powerful that is. You're talking directly to your pornographer.
Yeah.
Think about that, right? On what planet in the world would you be able to speak to the person who's creating your pornography? So it's bespoke. So because you're saying to me, Alix, I'd like to see you, for example, dance with scarves, right? Which is never something they're asking. Right? You can ask me, do you want to see that? And you can say, I'll pay you $100. This is on OnlyFans. I'll pay you $100 to see that. All right, I'll pay $100 to see you dance with, scarves. One of the kind of examples that I always mention is that there's a woman that I spoke quite extensively about, who was convinced to create a hardcore pornography scene on OnlyFans by a man she rented a hotel room, she created the pornography, she showed it to him, he said it was bad quality, berated her for it. She then sold the video, she needed the money, so she then sold the video for $50 to somebody else, and she immediately shut down her OnlyFans account because she was saying this is absolute, what has happened here. So OnlyFans has no idea what kind of content you're providing.
That's really crazy.
So there are videos that people are uploading.
Yeah, there can be videos. I mean, Denise Richards, remember Denise Richards, the gorgeous blonde girl? She's on OnlyFans, right? So I went onto her OnlyFans a few days ago, and I see she's promoting her daughter's OnlyFans. This is sick. This is extremely sick, right?
In other words, perv over my daughter.
Think about that. Think about that.
Sin of, it's a major sin that people commit, and a weakness of men, and we're
well, I have a lot of this. I have endless empathy and endless sympathy for a young girl who joins OnlyFans at the age of 18 because she needs the money, or because she's been convinced by the culture to do it. But when I see people like Denise Richards, it's really testing my empathy here. You're a millionaire, you're a literal millionaire, you don't need the money, you don't need to be, and this is a website, by the way, that also operates as does everybody know what a multi-level marketing scheme is? Like a pyramid scheme, right? People know pyramid. So OnlyFans is also a pyramid scheme. Remember, this is the number 7th website in the world, very popular. So OnlyFans also operates as a pyramid scheme. So let's imagine that scenario that I spoke about, that I go onto OnlyFans, you start buying my content, right? More than that, I start to convince my friend Amy over here to join OnlyFans, right? I convince her to join. She joins with my link, and then I get 5% of everything she makes in perpetuity. So not only is OnlyFans creating this content, they're convincing you to go out into the world and convince other people to join. It's pimping. Absolutely, that's pimping, right? If I go and I say to you, hang on, you join OnlyFans, and I'll get 5% of your fee. Yeah.
Of everything you make.
Of everything you make, exactly, yeah.
Do they really want 60-year-old one?
No, why not? Why not? Please don't do it. Okay, go on, thank you.
So another question, and it's because I know a lot of Marxists who use these arguments. So like an argument I've heard from people who just view like pornography as a different job. They would say like, yes, there is like bad content where, like as you said, like people are drinking out dog bowls and being whipped, but then they would say, but if you look at third world countries and sweatshops, that's also happening. It's just like you just
I'm totally like on your understanding of that, right? And I say actually we have to abolish this industry, right? Because it's a barbaric industry. It's not. It's listen. Working in a sweatshop is something also that shouldn't happen. It's a bit like saying we have managed to abolish bad things. We've abolished, in the Western world, we have abolished slavery, right?
No.
I mean, we should. No,
we farmed it out to other countries.
We do, right? But there is. But they're here in the traditional way that we look at it, right? These people that kind of say that. It's pornography. Okay, prostitution is paid rape. It really is, because you are having unwanted sexual contact by a person. You do think about that. They do not want you to be touching them, right? You are touching the prostitute, and it's unwanted. You're having a one-sided sexual experience with somebody else. And the money as well totally corrupts that entire process, because if I go out to a bum on the street and I say to him, I'll give you $100 to smack you in the face, right? You would all say to me, Alex, that's absolutely horrific. You're exploiting this man's vulnerability. But when we do it to a woman who's a prostitute and she needs the money and she is being raped, we say, well, sex work is work. Well, I could say, well, slapping a bum is work. Really, it's just like that. You can say that about everything. You can say, the thing is that the money corrupts this entire thing. If this was just people having fun, right, when people are not having fun in this. So, and just so you understand, my opinion is that pornography is prostitution with the camera running. right? That girl wants to be anywhere else but on that porn set. She does not want to be there. She's there because she needs the money. And the money that they make, also, by the way, I don't know anybody who's left the sex industry with any money, right? I don't know anybody, because they have to, they get involved with drugs, they get involved with other peripheral activity, and obviously, think about how traumatic that is. To be with someone who you don't want to be with, right? You don't want it. You're doing it because you need to, you need the money. And so I personally don't know anybody who has left this industry with cash. Even we look at the number one porn star on Pornhub, right? She left the industry with like $400,000. I mean, that's a lot of money, but like, come on, you can't retire on that, So, and that's the number one porn star, right? So that's
What's her name?
Lana Rhoades. She's actually wonderful. She's a great, soon to be she's an abolitionist now, which is fantastic, because I'm an abolitionist. Lana Rhoades, yeah. Her real name is Amara Maple. Lana Rhoades is her stage name, but I've created a lot of content on her, kind of talking about her experience in the porn industry. And I actually did a wonderful video with a man called John Mueller, who I have very, very long interviews and documentaries that I've created with him, where I talk about this woman really in detail. She's come out very strongly against the industry, and I think she's about 1 or 2 minutes away from joining a great organization like Exodus Cry, right? Does anybody know who Exodus Cry is?
No.
So Exodus Cry is an anti-prostitution. Sorry, I'm not giving you any attention. You're right there in the corner. Exodus Cry is an anti-pornography, anti-prostitution organization. Anti-prostitution organization. And what they create an inordinate amount of documentaries exposing the pornography industry, right? Exposing the real truth behind it. So they go into one about the STDs that are very prevalent in the porn industry, because we're told that there's no sexual diseases and it's very, very clean and everybody is being checked, and we learn that's absolute nonsense through the work of Exodus Cry. And Exodus Cry also have been completely slandered in the wider culture and the wider media, because the one reason is because they're Christian. Right? Because they use that against them. They say that you are doing this, as and it is bad because you're Christian. There's a lot of anti-Christian element to that. Yes, please.
What is the name of your channel or like platform that we can?
Absolutely. So Partners for Ethical Care is my organization that I started, and we have a YouTube channel, which is actually we haven't uploaded in a while. But Gender Mapper is my channel on YouTube, and there's a lot of content there. My content is extremely over 18, by the way. I say to everybody, be careful, if you're not ready to see. I say warnings all the time to people. It's funny, I say warning, 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 and then people still write to me saying, I'm so angry that you told us about that, and I'm like, guys, I warned you, I warned you. So I have a Gender Mapper channel that you can watch, but also if you put my name into YouTube, Alix Aharon, Aharon, you will come up with a lot of interviews that I've done with other people. And by the way, I do interviews with people from all over the spectrum, right? So I've got interviews with Christians, I've got interviews with feminists, I've got interviews with former prostitutes, I've got interviews with, everybody. So it's great to get that kind of variety. Yes, please.
Okay, one quick comment and then my question next. Talking about banning, actually I saw the news that USA lawmakers are trying to ban TikTok, right?
Yeah.
So if they can do that, why don't they focus on the
That's incredible, yes.
Because is there like a lobby too strong? That's my first thought.
Well, there is the pimp lobby, right? So the pimp lobby are pretty strong in the United States, right? And so what they're wanting to do constantly is push for something called legalization, right? So they want to push for legalization of the sex industry, which is legalization of everything, pimping, prostitution, and buying, right? That's what their goal is to push. And by the way, the pro-porn lobby are so clever. What did they do? They call themselves the Free Speech Union, right? That's what they do. Because they say pornography is a form of speech and the ACLU gets involved. They say, so basically, creating content where women are being raped and being gagged until they vomit into dog bowls, right? That's speech, that's a form of speech, and we need to protect it. So they're very, very manipulative in their approach to this, right? Because they know that talking about, I care about free speech, right? I really do. I think that, you know, I care about, but on what planet is being raped on camera speech? I find it, most people find it very hard to digest. And what I've always pushed for is that whenever people are having these conversations around the pornography industry and free speech as well, right? I really would love it if before they had these big conversations, politicians were forced to watch some of this content, right? And then afterwards they make the decision. Because they're talking about this ephemeral idea about pornography, and they have ideas, a couple of pictures, right? And then you get into the nuts and bolts bit, and it's sick, degrading, awful, you know, stuff. And I think a lot of politicians are quite removed from that, to be honest, because most people over the age of 35 are removed from it. Because it's my generation.
I have a question to ask you. You mentioned...
Sorry, I just want to say, you had a comment and a question.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah, just very quickly, yeah, sorry. Yeah. But like you mentioned, though, if those users were being, like you said, raped or gagged, I was wondering, though, are they really doing anything to change the platform, to clean it up, or are they really, like those perpetrators, are they also Generation Z, or are they like older people?
Well, you know, I think also that what the pornography industry does is that they do a lot of kind of show kind of, you know, pretending that they're going to clean up the industry. So they say like, yeah, we're going to remove some content. But the thing is that there was a study that was released, I think it was the study of violence against women, that said 70% of pornography scenes contain violence against women. Right? So yes, you're correct that a lot of people in the pornography do condemn the more violent sites, right? They do say, well, that's unacceptable. But the truth is that most of the content is gory, I always say this, if you're wanting to find what I say, pornography of yore, so 90s kind of style that we kind of, you know, grew up kind of, you know, accidentally seeing, right? If you wanted to find that type of content on Pornhub, you would have to search for it for a very long time. It would be very hard for you to find that kind of stuff. It's going to be very hard for you to find that level because it's all very, very extreme. That's the hype in porn, yeah. Amy, you had a question?